I'm a person that I have had experiences in the private sector that led me to a point of creating my own path. And I strongly encourage that if you have the desire to forge your own way, then to do so, because you might regret not doing it. And, you only have so much time. If you're, of course, afforded the opportunity, I think entrepreneurship is a luxury. And so if you can create that space to do it for yourself, then I encourage you to.
Welcome back to R4E, the Reason for Everything podcast. I'm your host, Arjan, and thrilled to introduce you all to my guest today, Ian Cain. We got introduced about a month ago through a Wall Street Journal article where you and your business were featured, and I'm excited to share more about that because for obvious reasons, I instantly resonated with it. But before we do that, I'd love to dive into your walk-up song. You just walked through it. It's Virtual Insanity by Jamiroquai. Why is that your walk-up song, and what does that song mean to you?
It's just a jam to me. This is like a song that reminds me of, it reminds me of the year 1996, 1997, because that's when it came out. And I'm like a freshman in high school. And for whatever reason, it was one of these songs that I would play on repeat. And it just was, it had a vibe and it was cool. And I think the music video at the time, because people were still watching music videos on MTV and VH1, it was like a sort of revolutionary video. There was this guy doing a kind of moonwalk dance on a moving floor in this like strange room. And my friend, I've got a friend from college who I love Jamiroquai generally. And my friend always says it's like, if I could say this, it's like shitty jazz, but I take it for what it is and appreciate the music. And it's just something that brings me back.
I love it. And music is really what connected us in the first place. As mentioned, came across you and your day-to-day at QUBIC through your Wall Street Journal article that you were featured in about a month ago now. I'd love to give you a second to just share a little bit about that journal article, and then really that piece of music or that point about music is what connected us, and we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had an opportunity to be featured in the Wall Street Journal about sort of gifts that that people gave themselves when they were returning to the office. And one of the things that I bought was it was a record player, and it was this sort of like state of the art made by a company called Como Audio. And I grew up listening to music on records. So my parents had an amazing collection of records in the house, and there's an experience to playing music on albums, and I mean, just like there was on tapes, and similarly on CDs. It's kind of a different thing now, but I mean, even the sound, the sort of analog sound that connects through wires through the speakers that just you can viscerally hear is just so meaningful. And to me, at a certain point in time, I was like, you know what, I miss this experience. I miss sharing this experience. I miss, like, it's almost like sitting around a fire, right? Yep. Where you're sort of communally sharing this experience with people, family, friends, colleagues, whatever. And so I decided to get this system, and I stole all my parents' albums at the same time. They had sort of kept them in the corner of a basement and didn't even realize they were there. And I went to their house when I knew that they wouldn't be there and stole them all, because I knew that they would have an emotional connection to them. But, it became an experience for the office. So I sort of invite people to come in, we put an album on, and, kind of just, it sets a tone, right? And then you get to, again, share that experience with a person before you sort of get down to business. But, the album collection is just super too, because it's all over the place. It's from people like Tina Turner to Jacques Brel, who you may or may not even know, to Michael Jackson, to, Hall & Oates, to really like across the board. So, there's something for everybody in there.
I mean, like I said before we started filming here, obviously with my guests, I haven't picked a walk-up song for the same reason. It's just a great way to get to know someone, get a insight into their mind, really, and seeing what either headspace they're in a given moment, depending on what record they play or depending on what walk-up song they play for.
Wait, what's your walk-up song?
No one's ever asked me that question, surprisingly, and I have a handful of different ones I want to choose from. I don't know if I have an exact answer right now, but a good question. I really love, and I wake up to the same song every day. It's called Rodman by a singer named Mike that I like. All it's
Rodman by Mike.
yeah,
Okay.
it's they play on it's a play on words for a bunch of the lyrics are a play on words about Dennis Rodman in 1997. So that's a
Oh,
song that I
nice.
love and I listen to, and it just fires me up every day. But I have a playlist on Spotify that I have that's my top songs of all time. I'm sure you have the same thing where there's certain playlists that you have, and you just kind of skip through a handful of the songs, but you like pieces of it, but it kind of depends on the mood. I have a playlist that
Oh,
I can play. I have a playlist I can play at any time that I can listen to the full track through and through, go through every single record. And so I have a couple of those on there, but I should have prepared for that question because I knew it was coming and I just I don't have a exact answer right now. It kind of depends.
Dennis Rodman was the only NBA jersey that I ever owned.
Oh,
When I was
really?
a Bulls. Yeah.
Even as a Boston guy?
Yeah. I mean, so I come from the like DJ Dennis Johnson, like D Brown era of Celtics basketball. But yeah, Rodman for whatever reason was the only jersey that I had. Like D Brown, number 7. Number 7 is my favorite number because of him.
Too funny. All right, let's jump into it then. So, yeah, as mentioned, you're born and raised in Boston through and through. Maybe get the audience up to speed. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your background, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in Boston in 1982. Like interesting story. My parents, my dad was originally from New Rochelle, New York. He's born in North Carolina, but grew up in Westchester County. My mother grew up in the Boston area, and they met at this storied bar on Newbury Street called Daisy Buchanan's, and it had me, subsequently, and we spent the first 4 or 5 years of my life in the Back Bay before moving to Quincy, which is just south of Boston, where my mother's from, and went through the public schools here, went to a private high school here called Boston College High School before going to Boston College. For me personally, I think a lot of this discussion will be about sort of decision making and understanding your path. I, from a young age, some people want to become firefighters or police officers. I wanted to, I wanted to be a politician. I wanted to go into higher office. And so I'm still sort of figuring out how, but I sort of devised a very linear plan for trying to achieve that. And part of it was going to BC High, part was going to Boston College. I thought I was going to go to Boston College Law School, practice law, run for office, have 2.5 kids, then some, become president. That's kind of the path. But you sort of catch yourself at different points in time. And I think at some point, because I was blindly following this plan, my senior year of college, I was like, why do I want to go to law school? I don't even want to be a lawyer. Why am I going to do this? And so figured out another path. I ended up in commercial real estate for a couple of years, working for a company called Tishman Speyer, before randomly an energy-focused private equity fund found me. So I spent 5 years acquiring and developing independent power producers in the Middle East, North Africa, and East Asia, which to this day is where I learned sort of everything about business and geopolitics and global finance. And it was my chance to see the world and sort of understand how it really operates. That could be a whole podcast on its own, but the fund was about to sort of blow up and the writing was on the wall. I decided to go to grad school. I got an MBA at Duke, spent 2 years in North Carolina before coming back to the Boston area and joining a startup that was focused on developing natural language processing software. It was spun out of the MIT Media Lab. Helped build out a sales and marketing team. We helped sort of raise a Series A there. And then lo and behold, I'm living in Quincy. I'm living with my parents at the time. And a seat on the city council opened up. And I said, what, if I don't try this now, I might never. And so I ran for city council in 2015. I won. I've sat on the city council now for just about 8 years. I'm up for re-election this year. I don't have an opponent. But I am, which is a very great place to be. But I'll be going into my 9th and 10 years in my 5th term. And it's been, that's been a great experience. In sort of the middle of that, I guess like 18, 19, I decided to go out on my own and figure out a path of entrepreneurship. I had a very unique, what I thought was going to be my sort of risk-free entrepreneurial experience with a telecom company. And that ended up being a disaster. And I came out on the other side. I said, I'm not doing this again. I'm going to figure it out. and started sort of pounding the pavement, having conversations, trying to figure out some consulting work, did some sort of small and medium-sized business advisory work through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program before leading to a conversation that led to the development of QUBIC Labs. And so, I'd had in my city council role a front row seat to watching economic development in the city of Quincy take place, mostly through residential real estate. And, sort of given our proximity to Boston, we abut Boston at its southern border. We have access to the city through through 4 stops on the subway, access to all major highways. I didn't understand why there wasn't so much of a shared, place in the innovation and entrepreneurship economy that exists north and west of the city. And so I wanted to create a space for that. So we're not just a bedroom community, so that people can live, work, and play here in Quincy. And so, we started QUBIC with the idea of supporting entrepreneurs who are building companies around financial and government technologies. And we've been working on that premise for the last 4 years. We're still alive. We've experienced some good growth, which is good. At this point in time, we've supported over 30 different types of companies. We've helped those companies create jobs. We've helped those companies create money. Create money, but also generate revenue. I think the part that's interesting for us is that we, at a certain point in time, found an opportunity to support has been sort of a nascent emerging technology around blockchain. And that sort of found us. I participated in a state education program that was looking at how cities and towns can apply blockchain and sort of recognize the opportunity to differentiate ourselves in a marketplace of accelerators and incubators that already exist to convene an ecosystem. And that's what we've been doing for the past 3 years in earnest. We synthesized a first-of-a-kind public-private partnership with the state of Massachusetts, with including private capital partners, some in-kind legal and accounting contributions to create a conceptual research and development and commercialization program around blockchain concepts, which we launched about 9 months ago. And, we've been trying to build community as well. So for the past 2 years, we've hosted what's called Boston Blockchain Week. And the idea there is that, we witnessed in this space that there's a certain energy and a vibe. And during the pandemic, we lost a lot of our talent and capital to places like Miami and Austin and New York and even places like Illinois. And we just wanted to take some of that energy from especially Miami and plant it up here and let it grow into something. And so now we're at year 2 at the event. We're really, we're seeing that happen because we know in the long run, Massachusetts and the Boston area has very natural competitive advantages of talent and capital that we want to hold on to.
Well, thanks for that great outline of your timeline. And there's a lot I want to explore further. First of all, I really enjoyed my time in Quincy. One of my best friends, Michael, shout out Michael, lives in Quincy. So spent time there back in April and got the full tour. And we ended up obviously venturing up in Boston more, in downtown area more, but really got to see the lay of the land there and can understand why you spent so much of your lifetime in Quincy there. But makes a ton of sense. It's interesting that I hear this time and time again, and my dad's an example of it too, where you study something in school because you study poli-sci, if I remember correctly, and you don't really use the degree for a little while, and then it seems to always end up coming full circle, which is ironic that it took you a little while and a couple of different jobs to actually get back to public service.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that, sometimes the stuff you learn in school isn't even valid in the operational aspects of the role. Because in politics, it's, they don't, in poli-sci, they don't teach you how to campaign. You know what I mean? They don't teach you how to open, a bank, how to go out and fundraise, how to go knock on doors, how to get good data to make sure you're campaigning to people who are going to actually vote for you, how to create your own messaging around what you're going to do, right? That's, these are marketing campaigns. I mean, you probably have better, opportunity learning in business school than sort of a poli-sci class. Of course, there's the fundamentals, right? The role is actually in city council as being a legislator, so to speak. But I think that there are many things that don't prepare you in school for the roles that you take.
Did your entrepreneurial experience in running for office, did that help as you're getting QUBIC off the ground? Did that help? I mean, to your point, there's so many different branches and nodes that you have to, or so many things you need to juggle as you're running a campaign. I feel like there's a lot of probably parallels that lean into getting a startup off the ground like you have.
Yeah, certainly. Fair bit of uncertainty. It's a totally new path, right? That you're creating on your own. You are the you're the product in this case, right? And you're selling that product to your neighbors and your friends and family and people that you want to support. You have to convince them and sell them on the idea of your representing their interests in local government. There's finances involved. So you need startup capital, and that capital needs to go towards appropriate things that can convey your marketability, right? And so I think in my first race, I raised and spent approximately $30,000, and it was a break-even operation, right? So I knew I needed a certain amount of money, but I used that money adequately and timed it appropriately with sending out certain pieces of literature and mailings to people so that they would be timed around preliminary and then final elections. But entrepreneurship is interesting because there's something that's inherent in people that drives them to forge new paths, to be creators on their own, and sometimes that can be fortified, encouraged, mentored. But I think most often some of the greatest entrepreneurs are people that just they have this burning thing in themselves that just needs to shine somehow. And so I think I actually remember trying to convey that similar concept that this is sort of like public entrepreneurship to folks before. But I think it certainly informed. There's a certain confidence that you gain in doing that, especially once you get good traction, and then you take that confidence to the next, iteration, which was around business. And QUBIC is a nonprofit, which is different type of business structure, but nonetheless the same organizational and rules and governance that govern the other two places, whether public or private.
Certainly. And one of the things that I always talk to my guests about, especially people such as yourself that are spread thin across a handful of different components of life, whether it be public office, your daytime job and family and friends, or whatever it might be. How are you handling the time management and personal well-being management with all of these things that you're juggling? I know there's tons of different calendar tools, tons of different methodologies people use, but how do you manage it all on a day-to-day?
You certainly learn what's important to you and how to prioritize things, because you can't take on everything. Like it's not possible, and it's not worth it. So I think the first few years on the city council, you become acclimated. You understand how government, how the system works. You understand how people operate, how you can try to advance, certain legislation or whatever sort of mission that you're on, and then you figure out what people want. Like the job that I have is a frontline constituent servant. So people call me and they want their sidewalks redone, and they want their trees trimmed. They want to make sure that trash is taken away on a weekly basis, that the streets plowed, that their streets get paved as well. And then there are interesting things. So I don't know, I found interest in municipalities because they're very nimble, and you can do, especially with a well-financed city or town like Quincy is, you can do really interesting projects. So, one of the projects I've been working on for the last 5 years in the city, which is a solution to a problem that people were coming to me with, is developing a citywide fiber optic network. So, folks had been conveying to me their dissatisfaction with a large incumbent provider, which is the only internet service provider in the area. And, there's no incentive for the only game in town to provide better service or lower cost. And so, we looked into models to try to create a competitive marketplace. And so, this municipal broadband model was the one. And so it's not only just it's not only just infrastructure that'll be owned by the city, but there's on top of it a dynamic open access layer, which creates the marketplace for ISPs to come in, use that space, and offer you or me internet at a competitive rate at a higher quality. And so people love this. Like this is something that that people have really taken to, especially during the pandemic when incumbents were jacking up. They were putting data caps and jacking up prices because people were working and schooling at home at the same time. And so it's an opportunity for them to do that. But this is still the number one thing that people contact me about. So it's like this is a big marquee project. Probably $100 million project. We're almost at pilot stage, which is exciting. But there's really an opportunity to implement things that you probably couldn't do as a legislator on the state level. You can certainly collaborate with executives if you are, but I like being sort of on the ground and to develop these large scale sort of infrastructure projects right in my backyard.
It's the entrepreneur in you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, in doing my research and homework for this, so you mentioned your passion for municipalities and your ability to be nimble, and you have the kind of bureaucratic framework in place to help you facilitate and execute, but you're not necessarily as bogged down with the broader scale bureaucracy at a higher level of government. That said, I noticed you've met Mayor Suarez in Miami, you've met President Biden. Do you have any aspirations to climb the ranks and run for even higher office at any point?
So, like, the honest answer is, of course I did. I think at one point in time, I certainly was just blindly, let's go. This is the path. Like, you have to just climb higher and higher. At this point, I'm like, do I really want that? And I think that's for a number of reasons. There's so much nonsense in politics these days, to a frustrating degree, and it trickles down to the lower level in very interesting ways. So because of the way that people consume media in they're multimodal, let's call it, right? So they could watch TV regularly and they get their stuff from the nightly news. They could just watch what other people are posting about on social media. And so, not that there ever has been uniformity in conveying information, but people's ability to self-determine and self-interpret information has changed a lot. And whether or not those occurrences that they watch on TV and social media are actually happening in their backyard, their interpretation of those events is projected onto the local level. And that's how I'm seeing it, right? And just what you see at the federal level, state level is, I think, maybe a little bit of a different story, but at least on the, connecting to the federal level, it's bananas. It's like a circus, and there's the amount of sheer amount of money that is being distributed across lines. I don't think there's anybody that can claim themselves to be a fiscal responsible or fiscally conservative anymore. I don't think that actually exists because everyone supports the same pieces of legislation that has flooded the country with money for everything. But so I guess to answer your question, it's like I'm going to see what happens. Like this is a good play. I want to get stuff done that I've started here in Quincy. I think I'm in line to become city council president in my next term. And, I want to finish this broadband system. We still got more work to do with QUBIC. We're 4 years in, but we're just starting to hit this. Well, we're trying to come up with our next magic trick. We've raised some money. Now it's how do we raise money for the next 10 years, right? As opposed to a 3-year project. So it's nice to meet some of these folks. I like Mayor Suarez a lot because, again, he's a person that, he runs a city, he runs a municipality, and he's been able to leverage that on a nationwide scale, even global scale, right? Circumstantially during the pandemic, he had droves of people moving from places like Boston, and with their money, with, people with talent. And, he was calling it at one point the capital of capital, but certainly, has built a marquee around an innovation economy. And with energy and with a vibe, and people have taken to that. Joe Biden's a different story. It was a chance meeting with him, but you look at the landscape and it's like I believe that people want a perspective of sort of moderate nature and some sanity, but I also think people enjoy the drama. and that's why some of this it becomes a little more like a reality television show of politics, which is it's not good. That's not really good for society or the economy.
Yeah, I feel like we all were watching a reality TV show this past week with everything going on in the house, but we can move past that for now. You mentioned QUBIC, and I'd be curious, just as you were building that from the ground up, what was the thought process like starting as a nonprofit as opposed to organizing as a for-profit entity? What was it like in the early days getting that business started? Because it does seem very, very unique. Was there a particular other model you were mocking the business off of, or what was the thought process like starting as a nonprofit?
Yeah, great question. Yes, so I had looked at a number of. So one, we weren't trying to be a WeWork. We didn't want to just rent shared desks, right? And I think looking at years ago, I think I had looked at a couple of business models that had used the nonprofit 501c3 model to leverage public and private capital. And I thought that was very unique. And just given sort of what I had learned, with the ability to leverage public money to advance different missions, right? I thought that we could do that. And I guess at the time, when we started having conversations with local organizations about getting QUBIC off the ground, we were fortunate to have the support of a local real estate developer who had some dormant space that said, if you can do something, you can use this. And so I said, well, why don't we structure this as a nonprofit so you can get some credit for that. And then we can build this as a mission-driven organization around economic development and job creation overall. So it's sort of like, and that's a constant struggle for us, and I think that's probably a constant struggle with a lot of nonprofits, is that you always, and not that it's not like this with some types of businesses, but you're always fundraising, right? So you're always looking for different ways outside of a sustainable revenue generation model. Because again, we're not selling desks. We're trying to lower barriers for entrepreneurs to start businesses. So we're providing them with, a very low cost membership to QUBIC. But specifically, there were two models. One was an energy focused company called Citizens Energy. I liked their model. And another one that was focused on affordable housing, which is in Boston, called Blue Hub Capital. And they've done a marvelous job, both of them, in their ability to be mission driven and to leverage both public and private dollars.
Makes a ton of sense. And I've had the chance to do some background work and looking into QUBIC. I'd love to give you the opportunity to kind of break down the couple of different capabilities and services you all offer, from the just broader kind of network aspect of it, or the members aspect of it, to the capital introduction side of the house, and give you a moment to kind of walk through really what all you guys offer, just for in the event that anyone listening is interested in getting involved.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So structurally, there's 4 parts to our organization. So we started out with a core sort of incubation program, which we currently term a growth program. And, the idea is that an entrepreneur can apply to this program, and we would avail them low cost space, real estate, desk, maybe an office, access to, advisory and mentor network. We provide them with, sort of operational support, strategic advice, and we work with everyone on every one of our companies in a different way. Some of our earliest companies we were working with on a weekly basis, right? Doing weekly check-ins, some less frequently, like monthly. Others are sort of strategic, opportunistic. We've got good relationships. They're running fine. We check in when we need to. But sort of and then access to capital would be, and that's through our own networks. And the idea is let's get our companies to a point where there's a sound fundamentals, a revenue model, good sort of strategy, and obviously a business plan that we can then help to put them in front of the right capital providers, which we have been successful in doing. Another part of our organization, second one, is we call it research and innovation, and that's what houses the grant that we secured in 2022 through Massachusetts Technology Collaborative. This is sort of the earliest end of the development stage. So we've got individuals and teams who are coming in to prove out pilots and minimum viable products. We're giving them $25,000 chunks of money, non-dilutive capital in order to do this. The way that it works is that they can spend it on hardware and software, and they can use it for custom development. And we've got 8 or 9. I think we just signed on our 9th company in that program, and that program is open right now. So we're still accepting applications. If you have a blockchain concept that you're seeking to prove out through pilot or minimum viable product, please reach out to us at QUBIClabs.com and let us know about it. We'd love to talk. The third part of our organization is sort of complementary to the R&D. It's the next phase of the sort of commercialization after development, and that's our capital arm. And so, when we committed the public funds, we committed private dollars that would support, investments, early pre-seed investments into these concepts that would then be run through our growth program on the back end of that. And then we would seek to help those companies grow up and out eventually. The last pillar of our organization is community and ecosystem. So again, this is, I talked a little bit about Boston Blockchain Week earlier, which we just hosted 2 weeks ago. And this is to create, it's sort of top of the funnel, right? It's one, it's getting everyone together. 2, it's sort of seeing what's out there. Let's bring more people into the fold. It's making sure the right people are interacting, sharing ideas, and then creating that vibe for the ecosystem that matches the level of energy that it seeks. So we, at our last, we hosted a startup competition a couple of years ago called the Blockchain Showdown, which we hope to raise in 2024. And again, we'll host Boston Blockchain Week 24 again next year. This past year, though, it was great. We had about 300 people come through over 3 days. We had 75 different speakers come from California to the UAE. It was all different parts of the blockchain, digital assets, Web3 ecosystem, from regulatory and compliance to legal and financial. We had venture capital panels. We had people come to talk about cultural and art aspects of this space. As well as gaming, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we had some folks come specifically from Switzerland to talk about the work that they've done. Switzerland and Rochester, New York, were doing really interesting things with economic development and ecosystem development around blockchain and digital assets.
Super, super fascinating. And it's interesting how much you all are providing. And what I'd be curious of is, obviously you have an affinity and tied to the Boston area, the Quincy area. But this program seems like it could be pretty scalable. Are you guys thinking about, as you're growing, expanding into other geographies and regions, or is the idea behind QUBIC that you can have home base in Boston, pull in talent to the Massachusetts area and recruit that way? Or do you have any vision or public vision of how you see the broader organization shaking out in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think one, we're still proving out our concept. And I think once I think the next stage will, we've got some very interesting projects where we're working on trying to create an economic cluster. So we're trying to tie work into the municipality. We want to tie into the community college. We're tying into the regional college system. We want there to be a contiguous relationship where there's talent that's being prepared to join startups that are being grown through QUBIC, and that projects are actually benefiting, this economy as a whole. And so, I think over the next couple of years, we'll get to prove out a couple of things, which we can then replicate in different areas. And again, just even those 2 instances of Lugano, Switzerland, Rochester, New York, they're doing some really fascinating things that we're looking at and saying, how can we tack on or partner with people like you to make sure we're given the same, treatment where we are. But yeah, I see an opportunity to export. I just think we need to prove out a couple of things before we get to, far on our skis.
Makes a ton of sense. And you mentioning Lugano, I know there's a bunch of Virginia Tech Hokies listening to this, and we have a campus over there for study abroad that
cool.
both my siblings studied at. So it's definitely a good. I visited there a couple of years ago, and it's beautiful. But would love to just get a better understanding of, like I said earlier, you seem to be a jack of many trades. You're juggling a lot, balancing a lot. What are you most excited about as we round out 2023, as we get into 2024? You have the upcoming election for yourself. You have a lot of work to do at QUBIC. I know you have a cute dog. You have your piano that you're playing. What's keeping you excited? What's getting you motivated to keep moving forward?
Um, Constant change, right? Adaptation. I mean, it's like this this event for this year is now out of the way, and so I'm excited to think through. So the next week, John, my co-founder, our colleague Justin, we're going to start. We're currently hiring for another position in the company, but we're going to sit around and think strategically about what's in store for 2024 and beyond. I'm excited for that because I love the sort of the big idea creation that can serve as sort of the fundamental basis for going forward. I think we're just getting started, and it's nice, when you're a startup, I guess at the beginning, we're so grateful for the support that we had received. And, there are people like our real estate development partners, Foxrock, South Shore Bank, who wrote us our first check, small amount of money, but it allowed us to pay the internet, you know what I mean? So that people could have the internet. And once there's we'd spent 8 months on trying to sell people, on a PowerPoint and a vision, walking them through an empty office. And I'm sure many people who have startups find this similar experience. It's not everyone wants to support you in the beginning stages. They want to see that you're sort of marginally successful before they actually back you. But now we're sort of walking into this place where, we're seeing the landscape. We've watched a lot of the froth, especially in this blockchain space, wash away in the advent of the speculation and sort of fraudulence over the past couple of years, which is good because as I said, we're not coming at this as fundamentalists or dogmatists. And so we see an opportunity, to leverage an emerging technology in existing industries, especially that are here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that can create true value. But yeah, I'm excited to plan forward. I'm excited to continue playing the piano. Over the past year, I started creating music, I played the piano since I was 41. And, now I'm just starting to make my own music, which is fun. Other things that sort of keep me grounded. I try to meditate every day. I try to silence this mind because everything is so noisy around us. I work out regularly. I do CrossFit, which is good. I'm excited to sort of keep these things, building good habits, I guess, that inform positive and sort of healthy productivity around the work that we do.
It's easier said than done, but couldn't agree more.
Oh, totally.
I guess other really question around QUBIC and then we can round out here. Any dream partnership or collaboration or partner that you guys would want to pull in or bring on as you guys are growing and scaling? Is there any business or person that you would want to either have as a partner or an advisor of sorts? Anyone in particular you look up to or business you look up to?
God, that's a good question. I'm thinking about capital. And so, we had been looking at some federal programs that would be really interesting to partner with, that would really advance our mission. But we're continuing to explore those partnerships at the state and local level as well. And so, and that's the thing. So we've got private capital relationships that we're strengthening on one side, and then we're trying to just figure out how can we, de-risk a lot of this activity through public dollars that support the mission of economic development that will attract, a multiple of private capital on the back end and that talent, right? So what's that recipe look like? There are a lot of interesting larger players in this space, but I think from our perspective, for our role, it's the aggregation of talent and capital. And so, as long as we're doing our part to strengthen the relationships between those two, then we're doing the right thing.
When Brian Armstrong comes writing you guys a big check, just remind him that R4E helped QUBIC get their voice out there. But no, I really appreciate you jumping on. I feel very fortunate that I happened to read the journal on that one morning in September and come across you and QUBIC. Any parting words of wisdom for my guests listening, and then would love to give you the opportunity to round us out, let people know where we can find you and QUBIC, and then we can close out here.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad that you reached out. This has been a fun conversation. I appreciate you including me in your continuum of conversations. Um, I'm a person that I have had experiences in the private sector that led me to a point of creating my own path, and I strongly encourage that if you have the desire to forge your own way, then to do so, because you might regret not doing it. And you only have so much time. If you are, of course, afforded the opportunity, I think entrepreneurship is a luxury, and so if you can create that space to do it for yourself, then I encourage you to. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we'd love to talk to you, learn more about what you're working on, even if you want to establish some sort of partnership. Our website is QUBIC Labs, QUBIC Labs.com. And if you'd like to send me an email, it's just Ian, IAN, at QUBICLabs.com.
Terrific. Well, Ian, I really appreciate the time. It was great to meet you today and look forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you very much.